it's Andy and I am sitting down today to film my September wrap up. Like I said in my October TBR, I can't believe it's October already and I've already read through September and read so much more than I was expecting to in September. Had a really good reading month. I have refreshed my hair and unfortunately I don't know if you can see, the skin on my face has also decided to come off, so I want to apologise for my face but I'm not gonna because we've also started to try and train this back over this way so I look more like myself. I feel much more comfortable like this. So yeah, without any further ado, I'm just going to get into my September wrap up because it is a big stack and I don't want this video to go on forever. So the first book I read in September was Loveless by Alice Oseman. This is basically me reading one Alice Oseman a month to catch up on the Alice Oseman books that I own. This follows our main character Georgia. I was about to tell you the plot of Solitaire. This follows our main character Georgia, who goes to university and begins to sort of find herself. She is asexual but doesn't actually realise she's asexual, and through making friends with the president of their sort of LGBTQIA+ group, she discovers this and that it's okay and that there are other people like her and she's not weird. And it discusses and looks at the relationship she has with her friends and the way that they were so, you know, like best friends in high school and how they sort of drift apart and come back together during their first year of university as they find themselves, while also creating this play, the Shakespeare play, or an amalgamation of Shakespeare plays for basically to show the society that they can have a Shakespeare society. So I really enjoyed this. This was fantastic. This is probably one of my favourites of Alice Oseman because I have actually been to Durham where this is set, so it was nice to sort of plug that into what I was seeing in the book, and also just, I don't know, it was just a fantastic book. It was fantastically written, really captured the university experience really well, I thought, and you know, you're treated like an adult but you're not an adult, and it just absolutely fantastic, knocked it out of the park once again. Next I read the Voyager the Dawn Treader, which is the next in my Narnia reread. This is book 5, so I only have 2 books left, so it shouldn't be too long to get that reread finished. This follows Eustace and Lucy, who are pulled through, Lucy, Edmund and Eustace, as they are pulled through a painting in Eustace's spare room because they've got to stay with their cousin, their aunt and uncle and their cousin Eustace, and they are pulled back into Narnia onto this Dawn, well, next to the Dawn Treader, and Caspian saves them, and they go on a trip with Caspian to the Lone Isles and further, and to the literal end of the world. I absolutely love this. I always love the Narnia books. You know, they're questionable if you were to look at them from today's lens, but if you can sort of enjoy through some of the problematic things, they're just so fun and such an enjoyable story. If you know, you know, and Eustace finding himself through not being human was really interesting. Again, just to, I don't know, I just really love these books. The next book was a total surprise to me, and that was Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. For some reason I can't say that. I thought this was, I was going to watch the film of this after I read it, and then realised that I was getting this mixed up with Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. So this, I actually thought I had a clue what was going on and I didn't. And I actually really loved this. It's basically about Josh and Hazel, who are, Hazel is best friends with Josh's sister and then starts a new job with her sister at the school and encounters Josh, and they are obviously falling for each other. They become best friends and end up going out on a string of double dates that are just awful until they realise that they should be together. I loved this. This was incredible. This just cemented Christina Lauren as a favourite author or author duo for me 100%. This just did it. Absolutely. They are an author for me now. Next up I read Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. This follows our main character, oh, what was her name? B. That's terrible. This follows her main character B as she's offered a job at NASA, but unfortunately to do that she would have to work with Levi, who she met at university or grad school, and they did not like each other, or he did not like her, so she was like, well, F you. So yeah, basically that whole miscommunication thing where he actually did really like her but didn't know how to act, very similar to the Love Hypothesis, but I liked the Love Hypothesis a lot more. I just felt that B, for being so intelligent, was actually really dim at most points. It was just like, sometimes I just wanted to like smack her on the head and be like, open your eyes, pay attention to what's going on around you, and then communicate. Other than that, I absolutely loved this. I really enjoyed the atmosphere. Ali Hazelwood's writing is fantastic. I just wish that the protagonist had been better. If this had gone through, and if I had been the editor on this, I would have changed so much to tweak it, just to make it, for me, what would have been better. I know this is a favourite for a lot of people, but unfortunately it just missed the mark for me. I still really enjoyed it, but it just didn't live up to the Love Hypothesis for me. Whew. The next book was a massive weight off my shoulders, and that is Witch Shadow by Susan Dennard. This is, I think, the last book in the Witchland series, and it is a chunky boy. It is huge. It is over 600 pages, over 600 pages, and this sort of wraps up everything with Safi and with this Iseult, Aidan. It just basically wraps everything up. I can't really tell you much about this other than it wraps things up. It is a 4-book series with a novella as well, and it just sort of ties everything in together. It was a lot of filler and a lot of flashbacks, and I do wish she'd done it from a different angle, but I enjoyed it well enough. The Witchland series basically is a fantasy world where there are different countries, and the treaty that they all signed is coming to an end, and no further treaty has been signed, so they're pretty much about to go to war. And in this world there are different witches styles, so there's water witches, earth witches, air witches. Safi is a truth witch, so she is coveted because she can tell when someone is telling the truth or a lie, and that sort of kicks off the whole thing when she has to escape the Emperor, who wants her for her truth witchery. The next book that I read was The Help by Catherine Stockett. I surprisingly enjoyed this. I listened to this in audio and quite liked the audio. It was really easy for me to differentiate between the characters. I have seen the film, and it has been a while, so I don't know how closely it followed the film, but I don't think the film was that true to form in the book. But this, I think, is written quite well. It's basically about the maids, the black maids that would look after white children in the 19-somethings, during segregation in the South, 1962. And basically Skeeter, who is a white member of one of these families, comes home from college, and she wants to be a journalist and decides to write this story on the maids and how they are treated and how they are in these children's lives and in these families' lives, but they're kept other, whereas she feels like they are part of the family since she was raised by one of these women, but she's also on a mission to find out what happened to Constantine. Constantine was her maid growing up and her nanny, and she raised her until one day she stopped hearing from her and she disappeared. So she's digging into this as well as reading or writing the stories of these other women, and it was fantastic. I really liked it, and Catherine Stockett herself is a white woman, and this is a lot to do with the lives of black women, and it does have that white saviour-esque sort of umbrella over it. However, Catherine Stockett herself was raised by one of these women, and she sort of inserted herself in the role of Skeeter by wanting to use her voice to amplify these women. I'm not sure how much research went into it other than her own experience, but I actually really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot and made me look into a lot more as well, so well done. The next book was For the Throne by Hannah Witten. This is the second in the For the Throne trilogy. I can't remember. The Wilder Woods, is that what it's called? The Wilder Woods is the wood inside it. This, unfortunately, this was so much longer than it needed much longer than it needed to be. Basically there was a lot of like dense action-packed stuff happening at the front, and then a lot of dense action-packed stuff happening in the last few pages, but in the middle there was a lot of bump that didn't need to be there. However, I did enjoy it, and it ended perfectly, absolutely spot on for how I wanted it to end, so I'm happy with that. Basically this follows a world where, in this matriarchal kingdom or queendom, it borders on the Wilderwoods, which is a magical wood that is being put there to hold their gods, who are actually 5 kings that made themselves gods and then ruled with fear and destruction. And in this wood, to keep them safe, sometimes 2 daughters are born to this family, and the first is for the throne and the second is for the wolf. So Red, who's the second daughter, goes to the wolf. Obviously it's a retelling of Red Riding Hood, and Neve, who is her sister, stays as she is for the throne. But Neve doesn't want Red to go, despite the fact that Red is willing to go. Red goes to the woods, discovers that the wolf is not a wolf and is in fact a man, and is actually trying to protect the world from the Wilderwood. So she tries to help him, and unbeknownst to her, Neve is trying to rescue her, which just throws everything out of whack, and this follows on from that second book and just wraps up everything nicely. Next one was The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. I don't think I need to tell you that I love this. Again, it's Christina Lauren, and I just love this. It's a romance, basically, and it's this company who have started up, and they have looked at the genetics of thousands and thousands of people who are in relationships and in love at different stages, different attraction levels, etc, etc, collated this data and found an algorithm that will match people up with their soulmate. And it sounds really sci-fi, but it's not. It's more science fiction than science fact, but it's not like sci-fi in the realm of like beyond capabilities, like we can read DNA. I'm sure somebody would look at the statistics of this if they could, but it's, you know, it's not quite sci-fi is what I'm trying to say. And basically our main character, I'm terrible with names, Jess, is matched with the creator, whose name again is River. Jess is matched with River, who is the creator of this algorithm, and they are thrown together because at first they don't really like each other. He is too focused on his work, she thinks he's a rude asshole, basically, you know, the grumpy sunshine thing, and they are supposed to go on dates and see if this algorithm truly works, because they have the highest score, which is 98%. They've never seen that before, and yeah, it goes from there. The third act sort of, and there's normally like a third act breakup in these things, and the conflict that happened there was really interesting because it wasn't necessarily to do with the couple, but then it was to do with the couple, and I just really like this. As someone who has a degree in forensic science, who specialised in DNA analysis, this was really fascinating to me, wrapped up in a love story that I absolutely adored, and it just is such a good read. Again, Christina Lauren just can't do wrong in my books. The next was another surprising one, and that was The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I did not think I was going to like this as much as I did. It's quite a dark book. It follows our main character Emmanuel, who is born in the woods to her mother, who has been deemed a witch, and then she's living with her family in town after mum has died. Her dad was killed, and these plagues start affecting the place she lives, so she teams up with the prince, or not the prince, with the prophet's son, who's to be the next prophet, to try and stop these plagues. But there's a lot more going on than Emmanuel herself even realises. I loved the way this twisted mythology and twisted religion in a way that made it creepy and almost fantastical. It was really, really good. It was quite like gory body horror-esque type thing that put me on edge, and the atmosphere was just incredible, but it wasn't horror in the sense that I couldn't sleep afterwards, which was good. I really, really liked this. I have been putting this off for ages because I've been so intimidated by it because it's a horror, but I definitely recommend this. It is very much similar, it reads to me very similarly to Three Dark Crowns, and the relationship between Catherine and the other guy, if you know what I mean, you know what I mean, that's how it reads. So if you like Three Dark Crowns and you can deal with a bit of horror, I think you'll really like this. The next 3 books were supposed to be on my October TBR, but then I read them in quick succession right at the end of September. So the first is Trevor Noah's Born a Crime. This basically follows Trevor Noah as a child in South Africa. He was born to a black mother with a white father, and at the time of his birth that was illegal, so he was basically a crime from the moment he was conceived, never mind born. And basically it just talks a lot about his experience as a child in South Africa, through apartheid, at the end of apartheid, and following on till he's an adult, when subsequently his stepfather shoots and tries to kill his mother, and then slightly into the aftermath of that. It is a fantastic read. It is harrowing, and I've never wished violence on someone so much. But yeah, so I think if you like Trevor Noah, this would be a fantastic read. If you're interested in what it was like to live in South Africa at the time, definitely pick this up. I cannot fault it at all. It's got his acerbic humour, it gives you a total understanding of the demographic in some of these areas, and the mixed sort of peoples in the area, and how they all related to one another and worked around one another, and it's just fascinating to read from someone's point of view who actually lived at this time in this country. And if you like Trevor Noah, like I say, you'll love this. Next was Undoctored by Adam Kay. This is a medical memoir that goes between, well, it's not quite a medical memoir, its tagline is the story of a medic who ran out of patients. Basically Adam Kay he was a doctor and OBGYN in labour and delivery in the UK and the NHS, and basically after a very, very traumatic case, he decided to quit the NHS, and this sort of covers the aftermath of that with flashbacks to times when he was in training and in university and things like that. It's incredible, it's fantastic, it rips open raw wounds for Adam, and I feel privileged that he's decided to tell these stories, because it will help so many people if you understand sort of what mental health challenges that people go through in the NHS, and doctors who are meant to have it all together, they're still people. I went through this and actually annotated and highlighted some things. There was actually one line that I highlighted right at the start which really, really hit me, like really choked me up, and of course now I can't find it because I don't have tabs, but let me see if I can find it for you. So yeah, the first thing I decided to underline, and I would tab if I had tabs here, is the end of a paragraph, page 9. But the thought of revisiting medicine felt like returning to an abusive relationship. That is how traumatised he was after working as a junior doctor, and yet he trained for longer than he was actually in the profession, and he got no help mentally. None of them get any help mentally, and as someone who's worked in the NHS and has seen a lot of it firsthand, I can't even imagine what it's like for the doctors, because I wasn't a doctor, I was a dental nurse and receptionist, so I saw it from that angle. But obviously some of the things the doctors go through are much more traumatic, and all they're taught to do is stuff it down, not talk about it, and pretend it doesn't happen, and that is no way to live. And we're here, the last book I read in September, and that was After the Bite by Lindsay Sands. This came out on the 29th of September, and after I finished Undoctored, I picked this up and read it in 2 sittings. I read 200 pages in the first go, and then the rest of it in the second go, and it's a nearly 400 page book. This is number 35 in the Ours New series. I've got on this top shelf here, you can't see it, the top 2 shelves are this entire series, and it is one of my favourite paranormal romance vampire fictions ever. It follows scientific vampires who were created in Atlantis with nanos, and basically the ancestors were injected with nanos, which are tiny little robots. They work through the bloodstream, use the blood as fuel and to repair themselves, and they were programmed to fix everything that was wrong with the person and bring them to peak health. So these nanos worked a bit too well, and they didn't stop working because the human body is always under threat from pollution, from sunlight, from ageing, so these people became immortal, and when Atlantis fell they were the only ones that were left, and when they made their way into civilization, they discovered that the people there were basically still in the Stone Age, as Atlantis was, you know, thousands of years ago. So in these people, the nanos pushed evolution to create fangs for them to feed through higher night vision, so they could hunt at night, so that they didn't have to damage themselves in the sun, use more blood, speed, agility, all that sort of good old vampire stuff, and they can also read and control others' minds. These stories start off following one family, the Arjanu family, which is why it's named the Arjanu series, and each of the family members as they find their life mate. Now in this series they can read and control everybody, all humans unless they are specifically unhinged and immortals who are younger than themselves, and they constantly have to build a wall and block things, block their thoughts so that they, you know, can't be read or controlled by others. A life mate to them is somebody who they cannot read or control, that other person cannot read or control them. They can just relax around them, they can be themselves around them, they don't have to stress at all, and the connection, the love connection that they make is always perfect. Not once have the nanos been wrong about life mates, and they've always been together for basically ever. The original Atlanteans, some of them that are in this series were in Atlantis and they have had a life mate. Some of them still have a life mate, some of the life mates have died, but they have been together for millennia and it's always been a perfect match. Now a lot of the time they match with humans and they have to then work their way around telling the humans what's up and what's happening, because somebody just walks up to you and says, "Hi, I'm a scientific vampire and I'm your life mate, and we're going to go off into the sunset and I'm going to turn you into a vampire now." It doesn't really work like that, so the hilarity of some of the situations they get themselves into is just fantastic. I mean, all the books in this go through the same thing. They meet, they realise they're life mates, they have their oh shit moment, they decide to try and woo the person, that starts to go wrong, they're put in a life and death situation, they realise they love each other, they end up together, and there's varying levels of sexing and things like that throughout these books. That's the basis of them. All 35 are exactly the same in that sense, and I love it. I can't get enough. Lindsay Sand's character work for me is absolutely spot on, perfect, fantastic. You get to see their friends and their relatives in this. So for example, in this book, Valerian is the vampire, that basically the immortal who is in this story. Is Valerian's story of finding his life mate. Valerian can be seen in many of these other books doing his job as an enforcer for the Immortal Council. So you get to know these characters from multiple angles throughout the books as each book moves to a different family member, but time continues to progress and they come into each other's stories, and it's just, I love these characters. One of the characters got their own book a while ago and I cried because I love this character so much and I've been waiting for him to get his life mate. And then a character I'd expect, anyway, no, I'm not getting started on this because we're going forever, but yeah, if you like sort of easy read paranormal romance, this is my favourite series ever, and I absolutely love it. So yeah, those are the books that I read in September. That's a lot more than I had planned to read in September, and I'm really, really proud of myself. Can't believe I actually managed to read all that, and I enjoyed so much of it. I did also start The Chemist and DNF'd it and unhauled it, so you won't see that here. I got about 40 pages in, it was like, or 80 pages in, I was like, I can't do this anymore, please stop. That's the second time I've tried to read it, so it was a DNF and it's on hold. But yeah, I'm so happy with that. It got a good chunk of books off my TBR. All of those books were on my TBR and not rereads, so that is incredible. That's fantastic and I'm so happy. So thank you very much for watching this video. I know it's a long one. Thank you if you got to this far. If you got this far, please pop an emoji in the comments, a little vampire emoji for the Lindsay Sand series, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!